Seriously, thank you so much to everyone who supports me on Patreon. Your generous backing is truly awesome. It is how I manage to keep making this content and much more a reality. Every little bit helps keep me going, and it means I can keep providing you with content full time. A special thank you to Diego Navarro Lunares, Kay Fernandez, Rodolfo Fernandez, Lucius Lau, Taylor Hunter, Jackson Frazier, Allison Stalker, Muna, Chisun Week. Thank you all so much, and I truly appreciate your support. Okay, we are officially recording. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jamar, for joining me on the ADC Podcast. We've known each other for, I want to say at least 3 years, maybe more than 3 years. Before we had white hair, I mean, we actually had hair when we first met, right?
Had hair. Apparently, back then I was balding. I didn't know.
Hey, that's okay. I lost mine at like 25, so at least you got a few more good years out of it, because
it went all to my chin. I can't really complain.
Yeah, I think we met initially through the storyboarding class, right? Like we had met up, and you were definitely part of a very, very good group of people that did some tremendous boarding work. And like I said, I was just so impressed with your talent, your drive, your determination. I mean, I want to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, had you just come to Los Angeles? Because I know I was living in Los Angeles around the same time, we had met. I'm no longer living in the state anymore. I don't think you are either, right?
No. I went back home. I was out in Cali for about a year, probably a little over a year, when I came across the class.
Yeah, it was great because, like I said, I've met so many people through the class, and like literally what I loved about it too was it just gave me the opportunity, like after having a full day's work, a way to kind of like not only unwind but to just talk shop and just to like be around other people. And in my opinion, it's very different from people coming up versus people who are like already like in it, because a lot of times there's not really that level of excitement, that level of people really pushing themselves to like the absolute limits of like what they can do. And in those classes, which I would teach, kind of late at night, you guys had so much energy and just so much passion, and it always like it always just charged me up, and it always made me like, after every class I was like, you know what, this is why I do this. This is why I dedicate my life to telling stories. Not for the idea that like, yes, I'm doing something I love, but to be around that type of people, the people that will do anything to make sure their dreams come true, and again push themselves to the absolute limits. And I think what was really crazy too is like right when you come into the class, like a lot's hitting you. There's software, there's storytelling mechanics, there's like equipment. A lot of people are still just kind of getting comfortable drawing digitally.
Yeah.
And it's like you're off to the races. You're just off and running, and you were working a full day's job too. Working super hard, and probably like on an hour's sleep or something. Because I remember you would also do like graveyard shift. I mean, you do really amazingly difficult schedules, and still do your homework and still like knock out great sequences and greatly drawn.
Man,
So how'd you do it, man? Like, tell us your secret. How'd you do it?
Man, what I got. I was sweating bullets. Well, first off, starting with the journey to, coming across your class, I think kind of like you're saying on your end, how like being in the industry, there's one thing that there's not, as much as excitement as for those that are trying to get in, right? Folks, they get to work and excitement loses, and it's just, I gotta get the job done, right? Mm-hmm. So it's understandable. But I would say it was the same, more likely for your students as well. I know for myself, because I go to work, in the field of security, dealing with, things that I'm dealing with all day, and like tired, exhausted. It's like, oh yeah, I got this community, right? And I'm going to learn more about storyboard. We're learning more about the craft that I want to study. And that was also around the time where, like Invisible Season 1 came out, and, it was just like these cool things that were happening. Streaming was becoming a lot more bigger at this time because of COVID, right? Mm-hmm. So the fact that we could have a community, with you teaching us storyboarding, the Storyboard Pro, like I would have like 15-minute breaks, whatever, between work, and I'm over here YouTube the Storyboard Pro tutorials class, But again, like it was at a time where like the world kind of was trying to figure out how to stay connected, right?
True.
We were meeting physically in person, so being able to have these classes via Zoom, I'm still a little foreign to Zoom, but there's Zoom and us having a community, us learning, and us having questions, and you've been available. And I think the cool thing was like there's class is probably like an hour and a half, and you say, hey, you know what? I still got time. Yeah. So we can put another half hour. You guys can ask whatever you want to ask, or this could just be lab, and we can just work together. So that's what made that, your class a great experience for me during that time.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
I was like, man, I'm losing hope in my dream, but this class, it revived that for me. Allow me to keep pushing. So, yeah,
can I ask, so was drawing something you always did? Was it something you picked up later in life? Like, I was always curious as to like your journey as an artist and as a storyteller. Like, how did that sort of begin?
I think, well, I know within these past few years, I had to kind of figure out the root of everything. So, I've been drawing ever since I was a kid. I remember, and there was a guy in my aunt's neighborhood here in the city of Milwaukee, and they kind of, they stayed in the projects. And this guy, he normally stayed to himself. He was dealing with whatever he was dealing with. He collected figurines, toys, like the neighborhood knew. He was a good guy.
Wow.
And I remember he just took out a sketch pad, and he just drew like Superman really quickly and Batman really quickly, and like there was like no thought process behind it. It was the from the stick figure foundation to the spheres until all of a sudden I'm seeing that with my eyes. I'm like, wait a minute. Like I was probably like 7 years old. I'm like, this is a thing. Like just
oh yeah,
like,
it's a thing.
Yeah. And then there's another gentleman around my grandparents' house. My folks knew. Like here in the city of Milwaukee, we have a lot of original homeowners. So that cul-de-sac my grandparents lived in, they raised my father, my aunts, uncles, whatever. So they knew some folks. There was another gentleman who, at the same time in my life, around the same time, 67, he was able to do the same thing.
Wow.
I was like, this is for real. Like, so I would always go and speak with these guys, and they were always more than willing to just take a piece of paper and just draw something. And I would try to replicate it. I would get in trouble at school drawing instead of doing work.
Sounds familiar.
Right. It became like, my escape. I went for playing with my toys. I didn't play video games as often like that in the 90s. Like I had a Sega and it was cool. But I would
Nice.
much rather play with my action figures and like create like worlds and like this is this and this is that,
Wow.
right?
Like a play almost,
Yeah,
using those figures as like actors and like you have a full.
I would get lost just playing with my action figures. And my cousin, he's the same age as me, so we would always, and that's when I realized like I've been a storyteller like my entire life.
Yup.
Because he and I, we would always make games to play. We would either be, what we're gonna do today. We'll be Power Rangers, but we're Power Rangers. Like every Power Ranger thing that's happened, like we thought about that when we were kids. We were Power Rangers in space on a pirate ship, or
Wow.
we were, our own X-Men mutants, and we would play these games like all night, like just I'm a version of Wolverine. Like we would just have so much fun, and that went on for years until we kind of like aged out of it. But it never left, right?
Right.
So
Yeah. You
it
think it'd be gone, but I mean it like some of these things only increase over time, which is kind of a weird thing where it's like everyone's like, oh, you're gonna grow out of drawing and that kind of stuff, but it just sticks with you, it hangs out and calls to you. I feel like it calls to you and wants something, and I think if you're able to tune into that frequency and take that frequency and translate that into something on paper. I mean, to me, it's such an amazing feeling. Whether you do it professionally or whether you do it just for fun, it doesn't matter to me. The feeling is still the same, and just getting a paycheck doing it is nice, but it really is not the thing that, in my opinion, motivates an artist. It's the quality of the work. And in my opinion, the thing that I treasured the most was the relationships, the friendships that you make along the way. I feel like if you just have a great portfolio at the end of your career and all these accolades, I feel like you've missed the whole point of this entire journey, which is we're all on our way to Oz. We're all on our way to see, this amazing thing and to be professionals. But it's the people you join up with that makes that journey that much better, in my opinion. The ups, the downs, all these things are just they're normal. It's gonna happen, and I feel like if you have good people around you, the good times are gonna be that much sweeter, and the hard times are gonna be that much easier to manage because you have somebody there who you can say, what, man, this is a tough day for me. I feel like I'm not as motivated as I need to be, like fill me up, give me those words of encouragement. And I felt in a lot of ways too, that's what I wanted this podcast to be, it's a chance for you to speak to those people who, like yourself, are working, 2 to 3 jobs maybe, or working graveyard and telling themselves, well, my dream is impossible. It's never going to happen, but I feel like those people need it most because we're all at that point, where we're like, is this ever going to happen? Am I always going to feel like I'm on the outside of the wall? I think today's climate has been very interesting to see how many people have taken this experience into their own hands and said, look, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to be my first studio that hires me. Like,
yes,
I come from an era, and this is like before your era, where it was almost like movies from the 30s. The studio is everything. The studio tells you what your next movie's going to be. The studio tells you how you're going to draw. Like, the studio is everything. That's how you validate yourself to everyone. You're like, well, I work for such and such, And then like after COVID, I feel like that all changed, like now you're telling us, and the world, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to draw. It's a lot more difficult, because you're wearing a lot more hats, but I feel like you can never crush that spirit. That spirit is like literally like bulletproof. Like it can walk through walls. You just have that desire within you to do something, whether it's huge or not. even if like you did a comic and you know you got this online thing, you got a small following, it's happening. Something's moving, you know? So I feel like today's era really does have something quite special that my era kind of took for granted, because you had a lot of us in a studio and the studio did everything for you. And not saying like that wasn't a great thing at that time, but it didn't really they didn't really push you to like come up with your own stuff, you know. It was like, we'll just do what we're doing, and we'll keep employing you and having you go, you know, forward, which isn't a terrible thing, but it kind of stifled a little bit of that part of like what we're truly here to do, which is to have our own voices and to stand on our own 2 feet. Whether that means we get to where we need to be or not, at least we're doing it, you know, at least we're trying. So I really do feel like that part of the experience has just been, you know, and not only that, too, your faith, I think, has been something that I've always admired. How you put good and bad in God's hands and say, you know what, you go ahead and you guide me. You let whatever needs to happen, you know. And that's one thing I've probably never told you, but I've always admired about you, that no matter what comes your way, you always lean upon the Holy Spirit and you always lean upon prayer. And I said to myself, now that is a truly, truly blessed person, because he's not going to let the world and its ways just completely weigh him down. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's
I feel like you needed to hear that. The Holy Spirit
yeah.
is coming to me saying, you know what, you need to tell this man, you know, how much you admire, you know, his faith and the fact that, you know, you don't let anything get you down, man. I mean, honestly, I really do admire that about you.
I appreciate that. It's like there's been a lot of dark times in recent time. What I realized is that this season, having to move back. Well, first off, moving back home was a choice because I knew that moving back home would be the betterment of my family.
Mm-hmm.
I started a family out in Cali, so it's like it's different. It's like, you know, the wife and I'm like, well, we're good. Like we got, you know, we were doing our own thing. But once you start having, you know, children, as you know, like it's like I'm looking at my daughter. I'm like, no, she needs to know her grandparents. She needs to know her cousins, and start to put things in, you know, into perspective. And to what you were saying earlier, in a sense of like, you know, as far as movement, like, you know, us having our own voices and where we are now. One of the things I had to realize is like what success truly means, right? So on one end, it's like I gotta get in the industry, I gotta do this, like this is what I set out to do, and it's like, okay, cool. But even when I got in Nickelodeon, I'm like, yeah, I'm here. And then it ended, and I was like, oh,
what?
I'm like, but no, like it's still here, like the goal is still here, and it was like, well, no, that was cool for that time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, someone questioned me was like, what does success look like to you? If I'm working a full-time job and I'm providing for my family, right?
Right.
A, that's success. B, who's to say that I can't do my own stuff, right?
Exactly.
Right? Create an animated series and upload it on YouTube. You know what I mean? Like those things really don't cost much money. It costs time, blood, and effort, right? And that's success as well. I remember Dave Chappelle talking about his father when he first told his father that he was going to go into comedy. And his dad was like, you sure that's what you want to do? And he was like, yeah. He's like, well, there's not much money in it at that time. And Dave said something pretty profound that really stuck to me. He was like, well, if I can, you know, do comedy full time and come out with a teacher's salary.
Oh, wow.
Comedy. Right. He's like, then I would call that success. And it blew my mind. Because that's like, it's real. I don't need to be rich. I don't need to have my name at the top of, you know, I just need to do what's in me to do. And hopefully whatever it is that I create, I can help make other people's, you know, lives better. Whether they can laugh, they can cry, they can feel motivated. telling those stories, those tales of tales and those myths that we've been seeing through all of human history. And that's what we do as artists.
Exactly.
You write that, you create that. That's what we've been doing since the dawn of time. You know?
Wasn't Dave Chappelle's family like really highly educated too? Like, weren't they
all
scholars? I thought I heard something where he was the only one not to go to college, and like everybody else was, had these, incredibly, great positions. So education was something highly valued in the Chappelle house. And
So, yeah.
can you imagine? I mean, he's telling his dad, like, probably has multiple degrees. Hey, I'm not going your way. I'm going to go this way. And it's not even guaranteed that it's going to work. It's just sort of, right?
I mean, do it. I can't stop. I got to do it.
I mean, you and me are parents. And can you imagine our child coming up to us saying that? I mean, because we're so protective of them. We want to make sure they're going to be okay. Want to make sure, they're not going to be struggling or suffering in any way. But on a certain level, it's like, well, wait a second. What's worse? If I don't support my children in their endeavors, especially if it's something where they have a dream to do something, could that also be just as damaging? Because you are going to suffer for your dream and for your passion. That is, in my opinion, guaranteed. There's going to be some pain that you will suffer, but man, that pain is glorious because you're doing it for something. You're not just at a job every day that you feel like you're, you don't even exist. Yeah, that may be the case for some people, and I know I felt that before getting into the industry, washing cars. I felt, this big. And believe me, people around me in the environment I was working made me feel that big too, and made sure that when they threw their keys at me, they didn't hand them, they threw their keys at me. Go get this, get my car washed.
Be happy you're here, yeah.
But I knew, I said, well, hey, this is just for a few hours each day. There's something good that this is doing because I'm so miserable in this position. I can't stop drawing. I can't stop creating. I can't stop this faucet of running, creativity that's pouring out of me. So in a way, that pain, like I said, wherever you are is a good thing. That pain purifies you. It sharpens you. It makes you hungry, where you're like, look, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do whatever I need to do to get, a few inches forward each day. And before you know it, something happens, the earth starts to open up, and you start seeing amazing things happening. So you're working, crazy hours, doing your thing. How does Nickelodeon happen? I'm guessing you're applying everywhere. You're throwing your name out there, and something hits. Like, how did that go on? And like, what was that like?
I love this story. It has less to do with me and more about the movement of God. And I'm not even trying to get like super spiritual. This is just factual, right? So here I am.
For those of you who don't know, this is truly who Jamaar is. That when you say, I'm not trying, he is spiritual. And it does come out in every conversation. So let it come out, man. Let people know.
This was, so I was coming up on a year of working. For those of you that don't know, I did security in the hospital. That's my moneymaker, doing security work. Previous military, I built a portfolio off of doing this. So it was one of the quickest jobs I can get out in LA, to where I can, take care of myself with that job. Moving out to LA, you kind of have to have like a sort of skill set outside of what you're trying to get into, so you can kind of survive. So that was it for me. So I was coming about a year, and I was mad. I remember looking at the clouds. There were times I would call you at work. I'm like, dog, I don't know what's going on. And I said I wasn't going to be here longer than a year. And I kind of rushed the process. I ended up working with this one guy, and it didn't work out correctly. And then I understood about trying to rush the process. You gotta work. So long story short, I'm on an off day. I think your class just wrapped up, and I'm watching. I think I'm watching it, and I get a call. I said, "Hello," and it's a recruiter. The recruiter says her name, and she's like, she's attached to Nickelodeon. Now I'm befuddled.
Whoa.
I'm like, and she was giggling because she know she was giggling, and she was like, "I want you to know, you probably wonder why I'm calling out for you, because at this point I was so frustrated. I had seasons of applying and not applying because I was getting really annoyed. So this is my season of not applying. So I haven't applied for this. This is why I said this is God moving, right? So she says, I gave you a call because there is a spot for a production assistant on this show that's coming up, and your resume was pushed to me by the head of recruitment at that time. And I was like, okay. And she said the lady's name, and I was like, that does sound familiar. So let's go back a year and a half before COVID.
Ooh.
I was randomly invited through an organization called Black and Animated to a Nickelodeon mixer. First of all, I never signed up for them, so I didn't know how they found me, but I just got a random email. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go out on a limb and I'm gonna just go. Busted up car, busted up haircut. I got to LA, so I had like no money. But I was still showing. My wife was my fiance at the time. She was like, just go. And I went. And I'm nervous. I'm shy. I'm being socially awkward, like all this stuff. But I managed to kind of speak up and kind of link up with this woman. Her name was Camille Eden. I linked up with her. We were talking. She was like, well, just pass me your information. I'm like, okay, cool. But I kind of knew, I was like, this probably just like LA talking.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
you
we'll call you type of thing.
Yeah. But what I noticed is every so often, I would just check in on LinkedIn or whatever. I learned not to be what's known as a bugaboo. For those of you that don't know what that is, that's the individual who's constantly hitting up somebody, and it's like, it's really uncomfortable for the individual. So I would check in probably like once every 4 to 5 months or something. But eventually I had to stop. So I was like, oh yeah, I do remember, this individual. So, we set up an interview. I got off the phone and I called my family on the prayer line, and we were talking and we all prayed. And I'm like, this is crazy. I got an interview for Nickelodeon coming up. This is wild. And I get a call from my brother-in-law. He had been fasting, I believe, around that time. He was like, hey. I was like, what's up? He was like, you got the job. Don't worry about it.
Wow. He said that?
He told me that.
Man, that just gave me goosebumps, man. Wow.
This is like 2 days before the interview. So I'm going to the interview. I am nervous. But people who interviewed me, they were amazing. I probably blew the interview. But then they called me back, about a week later. And I'm sorry, this was after the interview. He called me, and while I was waiting,
okay,
I got it. We had prayer, and then he was like, don't worry, you got it. So they're like, okay, we're going to hire you. I'm like, this is it. This is crazy. And, I tell my guy who was the supervisor at the space, and I gave my 2 week notice, and you could tell he was happy for me. He was wearing a COVID mask, but you could see his eyes like they were.
Right.
He knew what I was here for. He's like, my man's gonna go, but I'm happy for him, man. So I go, and it's during COVID, so we were working remote, and I remember the whole process.
Did you get to visit the studio to sign paperwork or anything like that?
No, unfortunately, not during this time.
So everything was shut down then at that point.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was no in-person studio. That's the thing that I regret. There was no in-person studio. So everything, the Mac, the tools, it was all delivered to my house. And I remember working remote from home for the first time. My first assignment was to watch the show in storyboard format, get to know the show.
Ooh,
and I was,
wow.
oh, the fires. I was like, I opened up every storyboard profile. I'm like, yes. I'm absorbing everything. I'm like, yes. Looking at the sheets, yes. This is how I need to flow. Yes. And so that was like the start of that. But about
Are you allowed to say what the show was?
Oh yes, most definitely. The show was called Middlemost Post.
Okay,
It
was
like the modern day SpongeBob. And it was really good. It was an original cartoon show. The creator, his name was John Trevick III, and which leads me into this part.
Okay. Perfect segue.
So, we're in a meeting, Zoom just like this, and then like, this is our new PA. This is Jamaar Meeks. And he goes, Jamaar Meeks? I know Jamaar Meeks. I'm like, what is going on?
What is going
He's like, Meeks, right? In cast? I'm like, because I'm the PA, so everybody's like on the call, and this is the creator of the show. So I click over like Spider-Man off Hi everyone. Hey. He was like, Jamaar, you remember me? I was so nervous.
Oh, isn't that the worst when someone tells you that? Don't you remember me? And it's like, was it good or was it bad? Like, you don't really know.
I'm trying to read, I can't recall. He was like, think back Twitter a year ago.
Oh no, even worse.
He said, you reached out to me because we had put a post out on looking for storyboard artists.
Oh wow!
He said, at that time, you sent me your storyboard, your portfolio.
Wow.
And, I was like, I like your stuff, but it just unfortunately didn't fit the style of my show. Got it. I was like, no, this can't. I don't use Twitter like that. I was like, I don't use. So I was like that. Sure enough, my message was right there.
Wow, there it is.
He said, who would have thought a year later you still would have ended up working with me on the show?
My gosh, that is an incredible, like, talk about full circle. I mean, all these things were like, at first you were like, what, maybe kind of hesitant, to go to that party. But somehow, you decide, your wife talked you into it, which is great, so you can sort of see like the Holy Spirit going to all these people around you, saying, all right, he's going to need a little nudge forward. My dad always told me something, that really stuck with me. He always said, be careful what you wish for because you just might get it. Yeah. And sometimes when it's upon you, you just like are in such awe of it. You're like, whoa. But then you realize I got like a mountain of work to do, like my day just got way more intense. And this is not the type of work where it's like you're counting the hours to clock out. You're literally there and you're so locked into what you're doing. Like you said, getting all these sequences and looking at all these storyboarded, sequences, you're looking at it not only like as the person, working the job, but also as an artist, and being able to soak up all that information and learn from that for free. I mean, they're paying you to learn.
Exactly.
How does that work? You know what I mean? And
after hours, I'm like going through everything. Like this is insane.
I'll say this too. I always looked at myself as a little bit lucky to like have grown up in California and not really known that that's where animation was happening. So I felt like I was very lucky to like be in that area. So it always gave me a greater respect for people who literally had to pack up all their stuff, throw it in a U-Haul or whatever, and get down to California. Probably no family, no friends. You're just totally on your own. And not only that, you're, chasing a dream. You're doing all these things. And I always thought to myself, like, how incredible is that? And it's always people like from the Midwest and the East Coast that are just so passionate. You could just tell, like those two regions, wherever it's like extremely cold, there's just like a grit in those type of people that you just don't find anywhere else. Just very, very powerful people who don't take no for an answer. I'll say that. Okay, no problem. All right. I'll hit you back in a few weeks. It's like, dang, these people won't quit.
I miss it because you have to be a different breed out there. I had to become a different individual. And I don't mean that negative, in a negative way. I mean it like I had to become someone who counted their faith, right? Who had to step on their faith. I had to become mentally strong, emotionally strong. And I mean, like, when you're talking about the process of being, suffering for what the dream and things of that nature, what came to mind is, I call it the forge. That's my training ground. I call it the forge. That's when God has me and I'm getting tossed each and every way, and I know it's like for my good. During that time, it don't feel like it. Your car might go out. You might lose a job, which happened with Nickelodeon. These things may happen, right? But it's the forge. It's the process of breaking down the individual to rebuild them. That's exactly what it is in anything that we do. Whether if it's building the house, building the car, when we work out, we exercise, we're tearing down those muscles, right?
Right.
You gotta refeed them so they can come back stronger. That's why they hurt. That's why your muscles are sore.
Yeah.
Because you tore them to shreds, right? And that's what it is in our life. So yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. So for me, I call that time, that space, that's the season of the forge.
It's interesting, like, for my own perspective, you get your dream, you're in a studio, you're working, on a show, and you think like, well, the pain's over. Like, I did it. I got through the threshold. I'm here. And it's a whole new type of pain because now you're pushing yourself to the extremes. You're giving, you're digging so deep in every day, but it's the type of pain that leaves you exhausted but feeling so good. Like, man, I got the work out of my life. I'm sweating. I could probably barely pick up my pencil. Everything hurts. And you love it. You just love it. It's like a few students I had also were boxers, and they talked about, taking tremendous beatings in the ring and being grateful that they were worthy of getting into that ring and pushing themselves and having that other person across from them giving them their best. And when you walk into a studio, this is not like anything else. They scour planet Earth for the best people. This is not just people like in our neighborhood or even just in our, in the US. These are people from all over, and the fact that, you're in that pocket, with some of the greatest people to ever pick up a pencil, is a tremendous blessing. And that's where I always tell people, the pain you're feeling, you should feel so worthy. You should feel so good about that because you're worthy of that pain. You're worthy of that suffering to get to where you need to be. And it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be fun in that respect, but it's going to like turn you into something that's even more powerful than what you are. And when you can look back on that and say, wow, I stood my ground. I actually held on, and I went and completed, whatever I needed to complete. And, I was very fortunate the very first, job I ever had, because I got pulled aside by one of the, the other board artists. And he said, look, every single job that you're going to do in this industry is going to come to an end. And I was like, well, what a negative thing to say. I'm like, dang, man, this guy's just beaten down from years in the industry. Why would he tell me that? It's so discouraging. And he said, but I want you to know this. You know the future. So everything you do, think about that. You always know what's going to happen. He's like, most people work a job for like 30 years and then one day it's gone and they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
For you, think about this. If you know every job's coming to an end, now you can plan a strategy where he was like literally schooling me to this whole thing. This is not something they're going to teach you in college or anywhere else. This is just like one person to another saying, look, I'm going to tell you how it's done. And he was one of the first people to tell me how important it was to have bonds, connections, friends, because that is how you are going to survive. It's not just one person out there, doing it all themselves. Most of the best jobs you'll ever have are jobs that, like you saw with Nickelodeon, someone's referring you and saying, hey, I like this person. That's the best way. It's almost like being invited to a party. How great is that? You walk through the door, it's like, hey, this is so-and-so. I invited them.
Yeah. Vouching for you. Yeah. What you're saying is exactly true. I had some problems that I really just blanked out of my life.
No, but my point was, like, so many people coming into this industry, and I hear it from, especially on LinkedIn right now. I have a lot of like 20 somethings that will, DM me all the time, and they're just so focused on, I got to get my first job. I have to like cross that threshold, otherwise it's all a waste of time. It's all whatever. And to a certain extent, yes, some of them are in like a tremendous amount of debt, from school debt. So yeah, there's definitely a pressure, to make this thing a reality.
If you don't mind, I'd like to kind of.
Oh, sure, yeah, please.
So I actually do remember what I was going to say.
Oh,
after this, what I saw during the strikes that were taking place on LinkedIn, I had to actually get off LinkedIn because it was extremely depressing at that time. And understanding the importance of those strikes, and a lot of folks losing their homes, and I was seeing people literally begging for jobs online, and I mean, seeing like, hey, I have a rate to do, I need work, and I want to say this: there's nothing wrong with finding a job to pay your bills. It may feel like your dream is at an end, but in reality, we gotta survive, right? You're gonna have to do it. You're gonna have to work to make sure your rent is paid, or your mortgage is paid, or the car note is paid. You're gonna have to work. Excuse me.
It's work calling right now.
Okay. We're gonna have to put in those hours to make sure that we can survive. And that helps take some of the pressure off of needing the finances. I went through it. I'm still currently going through it right now. And I believe you are as well, with a family.
So, definitely, yeah.
Now you got mouths to feed. Now you got to raise kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have spouses, so we have to take care of them. But it's important that we have the means to kind of pay, our bills. So that's what I say for those individuals who are struggling while they're waiting. Because let's just say I hadn't worked, right? From the time I had that mixer to the time I got hired, that was close to about a year and a half that I would not have been in the industry. Now, on one hand, I could have been working more, and I had more energy to work on my craft. This is true. But I wouldn't have had any finances to make sure I had a roof over my head.
Mm-hmm.
Sleeping.
It's expensive in California for sure.
It can be a part-time job. It can just something to where you have financial gain, so you can take care of what you need to take care of. But I do remember the story I was going to say. We're talking about connections and bonds. This is another fit. This is after my daughter was born. of I'm tired of trying to apply. Especially like I did a whole new piece for my portfolio. It took like 2 weeks. And like nothing. So I was like, you know what? Someone was like, just check LinkedIn. Like you'll be surprised. And the community that I started to kind of build and start to kind of like have networks and connections with, I seen one post from one guy. Hey, I'm pleased to announce that I'll be the new storyboard, whatever, for X97. I was like, all right, cool. Congratulations to him. Then another one. Hey, I'm so, like literally as I'm scrolling, whatever, like 5 of them. It's like, hey, I'm so excited right now. I want the production of X97, production of X97, production. I'm like,
you're like,
what the
come on, give me.
These are people that I know. But like, I went off red for like 6 months.
Right.
I hit one of them. I was like, I'm this like a mass hiring. He was like, oh yeah, man, you did. Yeah, you did. He's like, we completely forgot about you. But like, when he's talking about like networks and networking and connections, like that's how that happens. A friend of mine right now, he's been blessed to have consistent work. And he knows it. He says like, I know that I'm in a blessed situation because he's on a production now, and then he was still, because he worked with somebody 2 productions ago. Hey, we got a sequence that we need, taken care of. Can you do this for us? Very so like nice. He has a full-time and the part-time, you know what I mean? So like networking, connections, being a decent person, a good person with an upstanding attitude and making sure your work reflects that. Keep going.
Very nice. Yeah, because I a few friends of mine, they were like, coming from, a studio environment where, like you said, you kind of feel a little bit like good about yourself, you feel like, hey, I've achieved something. I'm in a current like place in my life where I feel like this is who I am. And when all that started to either come to an end or, slow down, I felt like the most dangerous part about that is where, like you said, survival became less important and it became more important continuing that position or that feeling where you're like, hey, like, I'm doing this because it's owed to me, and you stop remembering that, hey, so-and-so came from the mall, so-and-so came from security, so-and-so came from washing cars. Like, it's not that long ago that we didn't even like have any of that, but yet here we are. It's slowly moving into different directions. But it was almost like we weren't prepared for that. We weren't prepared to just like have our egos checked. And I think that is something where, and I'll just say it too, I think it's one of the greatest things God can do in your life is say, look, I'm giving you these things. I'm allowing these things to happen in your life. So don't be so focused on worshiping the industry or worshiping a studio or this job. Like, these things will come and go, but your character has to remain intact. And your character is not going to become something strong or powerful unless it's tested. You ever notice that? Anytime something good needs to happen, it feels like something bad is happening. You feel like, man, why is this all happening to me? How come I'm not like in my position of this? But you can't see that far ahead into your life that maybe something worse was going to happen, or maybe there's an even better blessing for you that you're not even allowing to happen because you're so complacent and content where you are. And again, no disrespect to, like I said, people not able to pay their mortgage or, anything like that, because that is absolutely tragic, and my heart, and, goes out to anybody in that situation, because it reading those things on LinkedIn and seeing those things on social media,
extremely heartbreaking.
It absolutely does, because you can't feel like, well, they don't deserve that. They've given their life to this cause and this fight. There should be some, glorious thing for them at the end of their career or yada, yada. But that's not life. You know what I'm saying? Life is not fair. Life is not set up to just be like one endless victory after another, unless you have a victory in your faith. And even those people, you see, the people that followed God, those weren't easy, good lives. Those people suffered, man, way more than any of us can claim. So again, suffering is, I think of it in this way, like suffering is not a bad thing. It's just, I feel like you're being prepared for something else, something maybe even more powerful than you can even imagine is coming. And you're like, why am I going through this? Why am I, you're back to that same mentality before you got into the industry. Why me? Why this? But honestly, like when it's always darkest before the dawn. You have to hit that bottom. And then once you're at that bottom, boom, the thing can just shoot up. It's like the ocean, it goes to the shore and then it recedes in and then it comes back, like the living breath,
I think one of the things is like, just hearing you say that, those tests, whether, you believe in God or not, or the universe, I believe those moments are there to reveal who you are in that moment.
Wow.
So, what I mean by that is, it's like we're talking about the training period, right? The forging period.
The forge. I'm gonna steal that too, by the way.
Right.
You better trademark that soon, too.
It's like it's there to show you where you are. If it didn't happen, you wouldn't know where you are, and you wouldn't know what you're capable of.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Like in order for David to have defeated Goliath and have utter confidence in that, he had to defend his flock from the wolves, right?
The lions.
Yeah,
there was lions too. There's a lot out in the desert, man. There was like some nasty stuff out there.
Wrestle and get on back, like, oh, I'm done with that. You know what I'm saying? So while he's dealing with that, you got other folks that are.
Goliath must have looked nice to him. He's like, man, this is the nicest thing I've had to face.
No fangs, no claws. Like, spear, I can deal with a spear. Like, but no, like it's those moments that show us, where we are, and it shows everyone else who we are at that moment. It shows God, our Creator, whether the universe, whoever, who we are at that moment, which allows us entry to the next step. Because a lot of us, we can't get to the next step in our life because we're still the same person who we were 6 months to a year ago.
Right.
And the new level requires for you to be a different individual, right? If you're an artist, right? If you're a writer, right, and you can't handle critique, well, I'm sorry, those doors aren't going to be open for you in the industry. And if they are open, it'll quickly shut.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to be able to adapt. You have to be able to adjust. You know what I'm saying? So, like, there's that. Like, man. Like, I'm going like a whole sermon.
No, I absolutely. This is why I knew. I was like, I gotta call Jamaar because there are people out there right now suffering. There's people out there right now doubting themselves. I hear it. They message me all the time. This is never going to happen for me. I'm trying everything. I'm doing everything. And I thought to myself, like, when you were going through your trials, you're going through your things, you never blamed anything. You always took it and said, you know what? This is what's happening right now. I'm going to survive. I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing. And if I need to do stuff, I create stuff for myself, then I'll do it. It just, sometimes I feel like people forget that. They forget because they think like, it's just me. I'm the only person going through this. And when you hear it from other people, you say, you know what? They're not so different, and they can relate to that. And I say to myself, like you said, whether you believe in God, whether you believe in a higher being or not, these are seasons. These are seasons of trials that are going to come through that are going to strengthen you, whether you like them or not. I try and say to myself, if I'm in a trial, if I'm in a moment of suffering, what do I need to learn from it? What am I trying to, what is this suffering trying to teach me? And am I listening? Do I, you look at us, we got 2 ears and 1 mouth. So I guess we're meant to listen more than we are to speak. So what is your suffering? What is your trial trying to teach you? And I feel like if we can take that and put it into our art, forge it into, I'm already taking your forge it into something that's creative and positive. Take that energy, because it's gonna build up in you. You're gonna have frustration, you're gonna have anger, you're gonna have all these emotions build up in you. Find a positive outlet, whether that's, again, creating a story. A lot of people, the thing I hear the most is people look at, creating their own property or their own thing, and they say to themselves, this is too big. This is too much. I can't do that. And I always say to myself, well, if you can't do that, think about like when we went to the moon. That wasn't one moment. That was a series of thousands and thousands of moments to get to that one point. This is a process. This is not something you have to do all at once. If you feel like I can't create a story, create a sentence, create a word, and just say to yourself, okay, if I can write this sentence, next I'm going to try to write a paragraph, and maybe that paragraph leads to a single page. And when you got that single page, now you got some characters. Draw that out. Keep it small, in my opinion. Do not try and overwhelm yourself with like 15, 1,000 pages of stuff, or I gotta write a novel and all this stuff. Not saying that people can't go that way, but I always see a lot of people. They're on the launch pad, but they're not able to launch, because it just seems like too much work. I did have one person make a claim, or not make a claim, but he messaged me. He had one of those posts where he's like, I'm going to leave the industry if this and this doesn't happen, if I don't get hired by a certain date. And I spoke to him, and he's a young guy, very good person. And I said the same thing. I said, hey, why don't you try doing something for yourself? Maybe right now that's the way to go. He says, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be a producer. I don't want to be the writer. I just want to do what I do, which is one aspect of it. And I couldn't blame him, because for so many years, that's what all of us did. We could rely upon one set of skills to carry us through, which is good. That was like the golden era of that. But that era is kind of slipping away now. Now the new golden era is having a much wider set of skills. Like when we say storyteller, we're really talking about a lot of things here. We're talking about characters, backgrounds, boards, writing. We're talking about a lot of pieces here. But again, like I said, I always try and look at it in the smallest thing possible. If I could just, take one page of script, and that will be my focus, and just create something that's a minute long, maybe no more than a minute.
Can I interject real quick? To the individual, I felt it on many occasions. And to what you're saying, Andres, like I most definitely get it. We're living in a different time, but we're also, I would say, living in a better time. We have information at our fingertips at any point in time that we want to learn anything else, or to get the basic foundation of a thing, right? So before your class, I found out Storyboard Pro was the industry. Cool. Well, I'm gonna YouTube it, and finding out that Storyboard Pro has a YouTube, channel, and this is how you do X, Y, and Z, and then coming to you and you capitalizing on what I've seen. Like we're living in an information era. So it's like, if you really want to be a part of that industry, right? Or any industry that you want to be a part of, we have to do our due diligence. Even if we might not want to do it, we at least need to know how to do it, just so we can be in the room. Right? I didn't want to be a production assistant. Truth be told, I sucked at it. I didn't know about files and organizing and their way of how they write stuff or whatever. But I learned, right? And that's the goal. We have to. I'm back doing security at the school that I actually graduated from, and I'm talking with animation teachers, and they're like, the students are still saying, like, this is my style. This is how I do this.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't want to get out of that. But you want to go into the industry, right?
Right.
And you might not. Let's say you might only can find work working on Rick and Morty, but you're someone who do X-Men 97.
Right.
You're going to not take Rick and Morty.
You know, you said something that was so fascinating to me, and you talked about how, you felt God's presence every time something was happening, like you were being moved into these things. And I said to myself, your goal initially was to be a storyboard artist, and you became a production assistant first. But there's something really powerful about that, because in a way, maybe when you had gotten that position, there was something in there that was going to affect you later on. So you got to see every department, where if you're hired into a particular job, like a storyboard artist, you never get to really care about the schedule. You don't really talk to every director, you're seeing the entire operation. And for somebody who's going to be a creator later on, that information is extremely valuable. So in a way, maybe you were meant to see something much more than the average artist that's coming onto a show, doing their job, and then moving on. You actually got to see the entire thing. You talked about watching everyone's sequence, not just your sequence. You saw everybody's work.
And that's when you, because storyboarding is one aspect, and what it really is just loving art. That's what it is. So looking at shots like, this is how they created this shot. I wonder what this shot would have looked like if they did it this way. I love music and listening to, and I watch interviews, and Prince was talking about, the musician, Prince was talking about years ago, how he was watching like a performance or whatever, and him and this other individual he was sitting with, she looked at him and was like, you're reimagining this whole entire performance. Like, you're breaking it down and you're repiecing it together. And he's like, yeah, that's what it is. I can't enjoy anything because everything that, and like, there's amazing things, like it really is, but I'm just curious about what this shot would have looked like instead of this shot, right? Or just, foreshadowing, like storytelling, like, oh, I know it's about to happen. Wife's like, how do you know? You should have paid attention 3 scenes ago. Like, just the art form of it within itself. This is what I was just going to say, and this is not a flex. This is just, this is information, the possibility of what could come when you readjust your expectations of success when it comes to the industry. I just got my second installment, my second payment of the project that I did for my first client, my first studio, right? And while we're having this interview, and the crazy thing is if you, Andres, if you would have told me 2 years ago that this is something I could have done, I wouldn't have believed it. What I did was I went from thinking of myself as a freelance artist to creating an actual studio, an actual LLC here. And the thing is like, well, I had those thoughts. I'm not good enough. I'm back home, right? So like now I'm folding back into like just regular work. I'm no longer who I was, trying to be. There was like a whole identity crisis that unraveled.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? So when I decided to start this studio, and this just one function, when I decided to start this studio, I actually had the idea for the studio over 10 years ago.
Wow.
And I never really acted on it. So when I come across this individual who's like, I want to hire you for my services, I want to hire your company for your services. It was eye-opening. I don't have to work at Nickelodeon. I don't have to work at Cartoon Network or for Amazon or for Netflix.
R.I.P. Cartoon Network, by the way.
Right. That's wild. It's wild that we say that now.
Man, my heart.
Like it's wild, right? Anyway. But no, like those things, they would be nice if it happened. But being able to take my creativity processes back, right? And dictate what it is I want to do, where I can have fun, where I can smile and bring that to other individuals. Like that's where it feels good. And understanding that pipeline with this client, we sat down. He's like, so this is all this? I said, yes, from A, B, C, D, E. This is how it goes. This is how it's supposed to go.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, it makes so much sense because he wasn't part of it. He's trying to understand it. So now he has a better understanding when he hires other artists, right?
Right.
To do whatever it is he needs to get done. So I just want to throw that out there. Like that was
wow.
This has been a major learning process, and if it's anything we took away from it, it's just adjusting our expectations of what we believe success is.
Absolutely. Yeah, and again, going back to the ego thing, and the pride. A lot of people don't know that was the first sin was pride. And a lot of people don't realize how powerful a hold it can take over you and prevent you from entering the next season of your life or the next season of what good things going to come toward you, because you're holding on to the past, you're holding on to your last success or holding on to the last thing, that could be preventing you from truly becoming the person you need to become. However, painful that is and however long that can take, it's not, a fast process, but whatever it is, it's gonna do what it needs to do to get you ready for the next thing. As long as we have breath in our lungs, there's work for us to do. And we're not here just to look pretty, even though, you and me do, but we're here to get some work done, and whatever that is, whether that's, working your dream job, whether that's working your 9 to 5, to pay the bills. It's all the same in the end of the day, because you have that within you. No one can ever take away that drive and that determination. I feel that drive and determination even trumps talent.
Yes.
I feel like the more, talented you are, sometimes that can actually work to your detriment, because you feel like you're above everything. You have nothing left to learn. But the person who, in a lot of ways, is less, maybe a little less gifted, but has to work twice as hard, to just stay in it, is truly going to give you everything they have. They're going to leave it all in the ring, so to speak.
To give an idea.
You know what I mean? I feel like that's something, and at least, and I'm just talking for myself, 25 years in, to suddenly like have to re-examine my whole life, my whole career, is not exactly like part of it. You know, it was never part of my plan. I was just supposed to go off into the sunset and, you know, just enjoy my accolades and, you know, collect my check and, you know, it's all good. But at the end of the day, that's not everything I was designed to do. You know, that's not why I'm here on earth, is just to fulfill my own selfish desires and to be praised, you know, here on earth. That's a one-dimensional way of looking at, you know, what we're truly meant to do. Even our gifts and our talents, you know, for creativity, that's not just fulfilling our own desires and just seeing ourselves up on the big screen and just saying, oh wow, I did that. You know, that's not exactly what we're supposed to be doing. And it's okay for even those people who like haven't figured out what is the next thing coming. I don't know what that is yet.
Mhm.
But you can always go back to your base, which is drawing. Whether or not you're drawing in your sketchbook, on your Cintiq, sitting in the chair of Nickelodeon or wherever, there's no difference in my opinion. You're still doing the same process of picking that pencil up or that stylus and allowing these ideas to flow through you. You
Having
know,
fun. Having fun.
right?
Having
What happened to
fun.
that? Where did fun go?
Don't allow the pursuit of being in the industry rob you of enjoying creating art. Because once you get in, if that spark is gone,
Right.
it's hinging upon like just being there, it's going to show in your work. Have fun. Draw Goku fighting Superman. Draw the sunset. Draw your westerns. Draw your space things. Make that like a portfolio piece. Like just do these things that bring you genuine happiness while you're waiting for your opportunity. And the thing that I learned the most is be ready.
Wow.
Stay ready. Because when you're ready and you stay ready, you ain't gotta try to get ready when you're there.
Oof.
Because you get what I'm saying?
I'm getting goosebumps again, man.
You put in a practice, you work on your craft, and not just doing the things you know to do. I kind of struggle with perspective. Well, I'm going to learn perspective. I'm going to learn these things, like Arnold Schwarzenegger says, I'm going to expose my weaknesses, which I have been doing, to get better at these things. Some of us, we're not getting the callbacks because we don't understand cinematography. Some of us, we're not getting callbacks because we don't understand perspective, right? Or our portfolio piece just doesn't match with the line of the show. There are a bunch of different things that, coincide with why we didn't get the job. But that doesn't mean that it's a necessary attack on you individually.
Mm-hmm.
What it just means is, it's okay, it's time to get back to the line. We know where we're weak at already. So just imagine, you're getting paid and they're like, hey, we need you to do X, Y, and Z. And that X, Y, and Z is your biggest weakness. They say, it's due. I need it by 8 o'clock tonight. And it's 4:55 p.m. You don't have time. You need to know at least the basic part, have a foundation of something. Be ready before you go in, so you don't have to try to get ready.
Wow. I mean, you talked about, you had time in the military, and I mean, it sounds like you're a soldier at heart forever. You absolutely, discipline yourself. You look at the bigger picture and realize that, a lot of this stuff is out of your hands, and that's okay. It's okay to know that certain things may not happen, but there's always a reason behind them. And sometimes you don't realize it, but you truly either dodge the bullet or it's just not time yet, And I know that for a lot of people, you and me included, we're very impatient people. and we have very strict rules on time and when things should happen because we want them to happen. But maybe that in and of itself is teaching us to be patient.
Oh yes.
Not a fun lesson to learn, is it?
But on the other hand, man, see now I'm going back to the Bible.
Yeah.
What made me sick for real, is like I believe it was Jacob. Early on in the Old Testament, there's a story Jacob was in love with one of these ladies, and during that time, you had to go to their father, ask permission to marry.
Right.
Well, Jacob got played. He had to work for 10 years.
Wow.
And he got played. Right? And the apostle's like, well, I mean, you got to marry my first daughter first. You can't just, marry my second daughter. So he's like, I need another 10 years of work out of you. So it took 20 years. Wow. For him to actually marry the woman that of his dream. 20 years.
Wow.
20 years. And there are other stories like that where it takes decades. It takes that long. I learned this about...
And if you truly love this person, what's 20 years? You could do that time standing on your head, Exactly. If you love this dream, exactly. What's a few more months? What's a year? What's, I know it doesn't sound, that great.
Appetizing, because we want it right then and there. I watched a documentary called The Toys That Made Us. You were talking about the guy, Saban, for Power Rangers, when he picked up the rights. Ooh. It took him 10 years.
Great documentary, by the way. Great. I love that series.
Knocking on doors for 10 years.
Wow.
Hitting nose, and then you're finally your one yes. You should put $1 million.
The Turtles one was my favorite. I'm a big Turtles fan, and to see those two guys, living in like New Hampshire or something, literally drawing in the I forget which one it was, but in his living room, watching bad TV, eating pizza, and sketching, knowing I want to say they absolutely knew that this was it. This is the best it was gonna be, and the fact that that still didn't stop them, that still was enough for them to say, you know what, we believe in what we're doing. And we're going to go ahead and create whatever we're going to create. But look at that beautiful, beautiful thing that happened. And like you said, they're not out there trying to be rich. They're not out there trying to be the biggest name out there. They're just out there trying to be themselves and enjoy the talents and the gifts they have. And like you said, we literally walk around with the Dream Maker in our pocket. We can flip out our phone at any time and upload our dream to it, upload our drawings, connect with others at any given moment. That's never happened in any other time in human history, that we have this kind of direct access to the entire planet, and we're not using it. We're just scrolling, which is okay, but at some point we got to be part of that. We got to put our fabric into that, into that grand tapestry. Whether it's big or not, whether it's, a few, I always tell people, if you can make $1 doing what you love, that's a success to me. I know I'm not from, Milwaukee or the Midwest or the East. For me, living where I lived in California, there was no dreams, man. The greatest thing you could become was working on the docks, a longshoreman, which, God bless them. It's a great job. If you're not going to college or doing any of that stuff, that was the highest you can ascend to. And I remember telling people, man, I want to work in comics. That was my big thing. And everybody was just like, oh, that's great, man. But nobody I was around had ever done it. It had never happened before, and
it's so hard for us.
I feel like that's where, in a lot of ways, I could have been in Milwaukee at that point, because I felt so far away from anything.
Yeah.
And I felt like, hey, you know what? Even though I'm far from this, I still love doing it. I feel like even when I was working at studios, I would still do this for free. I didn't tell them that, but I've been doing this, I'm going to continue doing this even after, the industry or whatever job I'm at is over. So if that passion is within you, it can never be drowned out. It only grows stronger, and it goes into, into different things. But again, yeah, we've gone way over an hour. So,
no, it's been an amazing conversation. We always get lost.
Yeah, I mean, I love it, man. If those of you don't know, like, I mean, me and Jamar, I mean, we talk, periodically to. I feel like every time I talk to you, like it uplifts me.
Yes.
It reminds me of what I need to be doing, and I really feel like those are the friendships that really mean something to me. The people that I can call and say, why aren't you doing this? Well, you need to be doing that. I mean, it's not always nice, the phone calls we have. You're like, why aren't you doing this, man? Come on,
It's one of those things where, like, we're talking about connections. Like, this is one, right? This is one connection that is strong. And just to give an idea to the listeners, I'm all the way in Wisconsin. Alvarez is all the way in Texas. We both pivoted and we went to LA, and we both got into the industry. We worked there him longer than I, but we were able to link up and meet and keep that connection going. This is why it's important to have a good heart as well. Some of us, we might not be good at speaking, we might not be good at public speaking or making good friends or whatever. But when you have a good heart, it's noticed, and people tend to let their guards down with that. And Andres has a good heart, and I believe that I have, which allows us to continue these connections. So on my end, anyone that's listening, keep pursuing your craft, keep working at it, keep the belief there. If you got to pivot to pay your bills, do that. Keep working on your stuff. Create your own. Have fun.
Wow.
That's what just have fun.
Beautiful.
Have fun creating those worlds, those characters. It might take 5+ years, but at least when you get it, you'll be ready.
I love it. Now, how can people get a hold of you if they want to hire you, if they want, to, work alongside you? Like, what are the best ways to get at you? Like,
I'm going to be honest. It's not a popular answer. As of right now, my first project is wrapped up. For this next few months, I will be off grid, actually.
Oh, wow. That's even.
Yeah, I'm planning to launch my YouTube channel first week of January. I like to release at least by the 2nd. So there's some animating, which I haven't done in a while. I have to do intro, outro. There's studio setup, so there's some things that I'm gonna be doing. But as far as like my Instagram, if you guys want to check it out.
Yes, please. I love, even if people can just get a chance to, and this happened with a few other people that did the interview. They started getting DMs from people, and a lot of people just saying thank you, for sharing your story, your struggle, your triumphs, all those things I think are just so useful and so helpful to people, from all over the world, wherever you are. It's going to be great to hear that.
As far as Instagram goes, you want to look up J Legacy. That's J and Legacy, Legacy. There'll be like a gold and blue dragon.
And I'll include it in the description of the video as well. So
I'm the Jamaar Meeks. So yeah, like you guys can hit me up there, and I'll respond accordingly. So like I said, I'm building my studio. I might be able to sort of messages, but what I've done, this is what I've done. I've taken social media off my phone.
Wow.
And use it for desktop only. I had to go back and treat it like it's 2000.
Wow.
And there's reason for that. It helps controls the doom scrolling, right? And it allows me. I can't sit just scrolling.
Yeah, it doesn't feel the same. You know.
It mitigates that, right? And allows me to respond what I have to respond to, and then kind of move on. And then now when I look at my phone, outside of being addicted to this game, I'm able to look up things a bit more. Like I can ask Google a bit more questions and read a bit more things of that nature.
It's almost like social media fasting. I mean, you completely have. You're the discipline. Here we get back to your self-discipline, and literally forging something new within that time. So, yeah, man, that all respect to that, man. I think you're ahead of the curve, man, because we're all addicted to it, not in a good way either, and there's got to be time to do other things, not just like you said, just keep doing the scroll.
Just taking a pause. You got a computer, just have it on desktop and treat it like it's 2005.
Wow.
Log in, and then you have your time off, and you log off, and then you'll realize probably within like the first week, I got my phone in my hand,
and it's just a phone.
or it just I need to look up this tutorial on how to do this, right? How to do my finances, how to budget, all these things will start coming, and you'll start wanting to look these things up with your phone instead of spending hours on TikTok. Because before you know it, I'll say 10 minutes, before you know it, it's been 3 hours.
That's right. I'm guilty of that myself, and knowing it too. I'm like, I don't feel good after 3 hours of scroll. Like, I don't feel good. I don't feel like I did anything. I feel like something was taken from me.
Yeah.
And, I didn't feel anything creative. Sometimes, I'll get a chuckle out of like funny videos or something like that. But even just going through your phone and looking at pictures of your family is more enjoyable and more rewarding than any of that, looking at strangers online that I'm probably never going to meet and never going to meet me. And what do I care what they think?
Lastly, what happens is, and this is the cool part, your algorithm will begin to change. So, like when you log in YouTube or your social media, whatever, Instagram, whatever, and you start looking at these things up there, within about a week or two, the algorithm will start feeding you those things.
Wow.
Storyboard Pro, Toon Boom Harmony, right? How to budget, how to say, and that'd be it. So that's your telltale of okay, I've kind of gotten out of
wow,
what I was into, several months before. Just taking a break and allowing the algorithm to reset.
Amazing. Well, again, thank you so much for doing this, Jamaar. I'm again truly blessed to have you as a friend, and I absolutely just can't tell you, I respect you as a father, as a man of God, and as a tremendous artist, man. So keep doing what you're doing, man. And like I said, I'm always here. So, whatever you need, I got you, man.
I appreciate you for having me. Thank you.
You got it, buddy. Well, you have a great night. Say hi to the family, and we'll be talking soon, man.
Will do. Take care.
All right, buddy. Good night.
Good night.